A warm welcome to a very warm and a very sunny south of France at Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, about 45 kilometres east of Marseille, and we have wall-to-wall sunshine here, preparing ourselves for round 4 of the 2017 Michelin Le Mans Cup. Qualifying first, split into 2 sessions of 15 minutes each. It'll be the GT cars out first, and you're very welcome. My name's Johnny Palmer, Graham Goodwin to my right, who is the editor of dailysportscar.com, and it is a small but perfectly formed GT field. Graham Goodwin, these are GT3 cars, so they carry traction control and ABS, but they're very, very swift indeed, particularly around this 3.63 mile circuit.
They are indeed. Good afternoon, everybody, from what Johnny correctly describes as a glorious Paul Ricard circuit. Bright sunshine, 28, 29 degrees this morning, coming into midday right now, and the 5 GT3 cars that will be out for the first 15 minutes qualifying session. As Johnny quite rightly says, a small but perfectly formed grid, a couple of Lamborghini Huracan GT3s, including this car from EB Motors. Good looking livery on this car, the kind of old gold, if you like, royal blue. 28 degrees it says in the air, 34 degrees at track level. It's feeling warmer than that, not very much wind around in the circuit here that often features the Mistral wind, but it's pretty dead calm, and that does mean a bit of heat soak coming into the equation as well. Lots of the guys from the European Le Mans Series free practice session earlier getting out of the cars looking pretty hot and bothered. And you're going to see something a little different this time around for the Michelin Le Mans Cup and for the European Le Mans Series later today, with a different circuit configuration being used this year, Johnny, for the track action.
Yes, turns 8 and 9 are extra compared to last year's circuit. So the first sector is identical to 2016. We head along quite a short but nevertheless fast straight. It's a fast entry into that first left and right hander, turns 1 and 2. Then another burst of a straight into the really technical section, turns 3, 4 and 5 that arrive very, very quickly indeed. As to 6 and 7, that sets you up onto the Mistral straight, which last year was run in its full length, but there's going to be an extra overtaking opportunity effectively. Hard braking about, what are we, probably about halfway down the Mistral straight, maybe more like 2/3. Hard braking into the left and right chicane, and then that feeds back onto the Mistral. The kink that feeds back on is also labelled as a corner, actually, turn 10, which is a very slight left-hander. Then hard braking again into the infamous Scene corner at the end of the Mistral. We've had some big incidents over the last few years, particularly in the ELMS into that fast right-hander. Tyre wall relatively close to the drivers on their left. Then the hairpin at turn 12. Again, a very technical end to the lap as well. 13, 14, 15 and 16. And back across the timing line. So it's a complex lap in places, but there's also opportunity to allow these GT cars, and we will see LMP3 later on in the in this qualifying session, really get the horsepower unleashed. P3's in fact already on the apron, and they're waiting for their separate session. We have about 5 minutes of downtime between the two. There is, in fact, a ideal indication of which way the track goes. So the FL indicates this timing line. And as I say, tricky start to it. There are various configurations though here at Paul Ricard, and you need to know which one you're on, because reference points are at a premium, it has to be said. Yep, the circuit will be welcoming Grand Prix racing back next year for the first time in many, many years. The famous pit building here, still around from its time as a very high-tech test facility. The GT cars are at pit exit, and Ramon Vos will be the first away in the Ram Racing Mercedes AMG. Beautifully prepared, that car. Flick Haig also out on track too. They're the first 2 cars to get out there and to start their lappery for just this 15 minutes of qualifying time. And regular viewers of the Michelin Le Mans Cup will normally recognise 6 cars in GT3, just the 5 this weekend. We don't have the number 95 Spirit of Race Ferrari, but otherwise everyone is present and correct. There's been a little bit of adjustment in P3 too, but we'll get to that after this first 15-minute chunk. And Ramon Vos just the car squirming from left to right there, coming out of turn 5. and then the right and left king, which will lead him on to the Mistral corner. A reminder as well that driver combinations have to include a bronze driver, and your other driver then can be silver or gold, but it has to be the bronze that does the qualifying, which adds extra impetus to the slightly less experienced driver and more responsibility too. Some combinations actually include 2 bronze drivers, so it's not immediately obvious when we get going here which driver will be at the wheel of those cars. For example, the number 23 LMP3 car, Richard Mines and Andrew Bentley labelled against that. I don't think we've got any all bronze lineups for GT3 though. No, we haven't. So it'll be Raymond Vos in the number 5 car on screen now. Lee Moll piloting the number 7 Mercedes AMG from Lee Moll himself. That's the name of the entry. Cedric Mezar will be at the wheel of the number 8 SVC Sport Management Lamborghini. Emanuele Busnelli, championship leader with Fabio Babini. He takes control of the EB Motors Lambo. And the Audi R8 from Optimum Racing will be qualified by Flick Haig. And there's an early spin there from Raymond Vos. This is an outlap. And already tyre temperature, I think, at a premium here, despite the ambient temperature. I didn't actually see the incident. I was busy looking down at my other screens, but it was mopped up pretty well there by the Dutchman. Yes, he's doing a lot of wiggling around, isn't he, trying to get the tyre temperature up. Did he run out wide on the marbles?
Yes, he did. And I've been hearing all weekend.
Bit too much curve, wasn't it?
Yes. Hearing all weekend so far, it's been pretty slippery out there, and particularly here, the team's telling us that they think the new LMP2 cars causing some very odd marbles. It's almost dust-like.
Ooh, okay.
You know, we're chatting to one of the LMP3 teams this morning and saying that the gentleman drivers in particular were struggling a little with those conditions. Lots of track time for the European Le Mans Series teams here, including private testing before the race meeting proper got underway midweek. But Raymond Vos, no harm, no foul. There's 15 minutes of track time for the bronze driver. It means that his professional driver partner here, Tom Onslow-Cole, gets 15 minutes more of a honeymoon.
That's
waiting last week. He's all heart, Tom Onslow-Cole, bringing the new missus to a race meeting. Well done, Tom.
Well, it's more a case of the missus bringing him, I think.
It is
surely.
a bit. It is a bit. But congratulations to Tom and Bex.
Very much so. Well done, you two. We've already had 2 free practice sessions run this weekend, and your point about how the car behaves through the course of those free practice sessions is valid, but also, as you say, about the track and how that evolves and how the rubber is laid down. We've got different tyre manufacturers, not within this race, within this category, but within the ELMS we have another tyre manufacturer, of course, along with Michelin, and how that rubber is laid down, the fine grade of rubber that ends up on the track, as you say, more like dust rather than big thick marbles, and that might be something to do with the level of heat here this weekend, because we're not yet at the hottest point of the weekend either. I think temperatures predicted to be something like 31, 32 degrees possibly on Sunday. It's going to be slightly cooler, maybe ambient temperature, but the track's going to retain its heat come the race for these cars later on, because the race is billed for a 4 p.m. start, I think, Central European time.
Well, we got a quick
4
look
till 6
at the start line gantry, which shows alternately the time and the temperature. 29.8 degrees shown the last time I spotted. That's 4 of the 5 GT cars are out on track. The missing car is the SVC Lamborghini. Cedric Mezard shown at the wheel for that car, but that's yet to show its very shapely face in this session. But the first car to complete a flying lap looks set to be Emanuele Busnelli. It is. It's a 2:11.063. That's not a bad first effort from Busnelli. 2:07, a good pro time in one of these cars. And remember, if you're comparing times from other race meetings, 2 things are different between these GT3 cars and others. Number 1 is the fact that they'll be running different rubber. These cars all on Michelin rubber, of course, the series sponsor for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And the second thing is, of course, the circuit configuration, as we said a little earlier. Get a few more comparisons with that when we get into the European Le Mans Series cars later. Okay, there, a little bit of a lock-up, pushing on.
pole positions so far this season, by the way. Busnelli, by far the best record, with 2 to his name. Took pole position at Monza and last time out in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. We've also had pole positions, well, there were 2 races, remember, at the Road to Le Mans event, one on the Thursday and one on the Saturday morning. They were just 55 minutes in duration, and we had pole positions for the Andrew Baker-Ben Barker combination, but it was Baker who got pole, and Akmal Al-Hati, joined by Tom Jackson in the Aston Martin for a one-off appearance. But as for the regulars in this championship, it's actually Busnelli with a far greater record.
Minor dramas for the EB Motors car, though. Busnelli loses that lap time and drops to the bottom of timing and scoring. Still no sign, by the way, of the orange Lamborghini. So it's Lee Mole at the moment. Another man in the 211s, 211.956 for Lee Mole. In the number 7, AMD tuning prepared. Lee Mole Racing entered Mercedes AMG GT3. And that's way, way quicker at the moment than anything else that the other cars can throw at this session, but that will surely change. So already halfway through this session, 7.5 minutes remain. Busnelli is about to get a representative lap time, but unfortunately it's being held up now by Romain Vos, really rather badly in that final sector. And what damage will that do? 2:11 is doable by Busnelli. Comes across and he's at 2:09. It's a much quicker time. And actually, Romain Vos wasn't holding up that badly, because he's gone second, 2:11.617. The Mole betters that time across the line. It's still in the 2:11s. 2:09.881 then from Busnelli in the 46 EB Motors Lamborghini. Then it's the 2 Mercedes, the number 7 of Lee Mole, the number 5 Romain Vos, both in the 2:11s. 2:11.0 for Lee Mole, 2:11.6 for Romain Vos. Flick Haig, though, Johnny, goes up to second with a 2:10, almost dead, 0:03 from Flick Haig, and just over a 1/10 of a second off the pole setting time of Emanuele Busnelli. And Flick Haig, I think we were noting last time out, beginning to make a bit of a reputation for pulling these qualifying sessions right out the bag, right at the end of the session. So can she do this again with 7 minutes still remaining on the clock?
And often it can be about timing, can't it? Obviously you have to drive very, very swiftly, but if you can somehow measure your pace and put in a really good lap at the end of the 15 minutes, that obviously leaves no time for anyone to try and respond. Emanuele Busnelli has always fought Flick Haig very sternly over the 15-minute period, and Flick's come pretty close to taking a first pole position of the year for Optimum Racing. Flick, the 32-year-old Brit, sharing with Joe Osborne, who is from Bedford in the UK, and Optimum Racing regularly racing their Audi R8 in this championship and others too, including the Creventic series in various 12 and 24-hour races. But the Mercedes also showing pretty good pace. It's slipped to 3rd fastest now, with Lee Mole still at the wheel, and he's working that car that carries the AMD livery but entered under the Lee Mole banner, sharing it with British GT regular Phil Keane.
Busnelli loses the pole position lap, but is going quicker this time around. So Busnelli loses pole position lap. Flick Haig goes to pole position in the number 75 Audi, 2:10.003, going more quickly this time around. But I think Busnelli might snatch it back, but it's the second fast lap Busnelli has lost. He completes that lap, though, a 2:08.67. So puts a second on the field at the moment.
And 5.5 minutes to go, so 15 minutes disappears very quickly when you have to do an outlap, and it's a 5.8 kilometre circuit, but it disappears even more quickly for Busnelli, who keeps having these times taken away from him. Perfectly legitimately, you have to stay within the track limits, and with so much runoff here at Paul Ricard, the curbs are almost calling you in, but it's a case of having to stay on the island, which Lee Mole is doing into this right and left flick towards the end of the lap. No, the start of the lap indeed, with the Mistral in the background there.
Another man to lose a quick lap was Romain Vos. That 2:11.9 that he popped in has gone, I'm afraid, to track limits as well. He drops back down to 4th with 2:19 his best effort. Flick Haig would have gone to pole but for that last effort from Emanuele Busnelli. So a 2:08.670 from Busnelli plays a 2:09.213 from Flick Haig. Busnelli, though, is going quicker again, as is Flick Haig.
I have an awful feeling we're not going to see the SVC Sport Management Lamborghini. It's still yet to emerge from the pit lane, and Cedric Mézard I'm not even sure whether he's in the car. If there's a problem there that is judged too significant to get that car running, it will have to start at the back of the field. And remember, we do get overlap between the two categories in this part of the for the later on race. In that, we might have a GT3 car starting on row 3 or 4 in amongst the P3s, which always means an interesting start. Audi clipping the curb there with Flick Haig at the wheel. The 3 cars that she's trying to beat to pole position are ahead of her on the road. The 46 car just working its way through turn 9 and on towards turn 10 now. So in the final sector is the car with provisional pole, Emanuele Busnelli, championship leader, remember.
Busnelli not as quick in the middle sector. Flick Haig quickest overall in the middle sector. We can see the orange Lamborghini is on pit road but has not moved. A very quick middle sector as well from Ramon Vos. There is the number 8, and no indication as to what the problem might be there. Certainly no drama around the car.
Parked outside the Setelavi Villorba Corsa team, and that's the team that has the garage for the weekend. But in this sort of satellite pit stop formation that the GT3, the Michelin Le Mans Cup, rather as it's called for this year, the cars are based in a sort of outer paddock, and then they're brought round to the front for their race later on this afternoon.
Well, it's the same team, oddly enough, with that one, because it's SVC is Scuderia Villorba Corsa Sport Management. Setelavi Villorba Corsa are the same team. A further lap to be deleted, but it's not a quick one from Busnelli. Flick Haig closes the gap. It's under half a second now. 2:08.6 plays 2:09.1. Busnelli from Haig. Lee Moe with a 2:10.1. And also in a 2:10.1, Ramon Vos closes the gap to, well, it's under a tenth between the two Mercedes-Benz now.
Audi looks very manoeuvrable here. It's a big car, wide car, but it is able to charge its way into turns 4 and 5 and change direction at will. So Flick Haig has got it wound up here. Tyres up to temperature. Tyre pressures will be there too. This is perfect timing to try and push for a good lap. She's currently second fastest with a 2:09.127 and trails Busnelli by half a second. So a fair bit of time to try and find. This is the chicane we're using on the Mistral for this weekend then. And that's not the only chicane that can be used here, but it does mean, as I say, an extra overtaking opportunity. If you get a good run on an opponent and a good slipstream during the race, prime time then to slip up the inside as you turn left and right. And Flick Haig finding great time, Graham, on this lap. Oh, unlike Ramon Vos, who's rotated again with 90 seconds left on the clock. The number 5 Mercedes from Ram Racing, though, it's a very similar place.
Yes,
he lost it.
Ran wide over the rather abrasive surface on the left. Seemed to lose a grip in that manoeuvre. Didn't
quite reach the curb that he clipped too heavily in the earlier on in this session. Here's the other Mercedes AMG, though, as Flick Haig's about to cross the line. No, she's still at turns 9 and 10.
But Busnelli has gone quicker. It's a 2:08.6, so it's half a second now to the good. What can Flick Haig do about that? She was quicker than she'd been before in Sector 1, quickest overall in Sector 2. Identically powered car. The 5.2-litre V10 engined monster that's in the back of both the Audis and of the Lamborghinis. She closes it to under a tenth of a second with 46 seconds to go, but she's got Lee Moe ahead of her. That was a great lap from Flick Haig. 2:08.602 from Busnelli, 2:08.660 from Flick Haig, with ultimately quickest middle and third sector, and an improvement in the first sector. But I fear that Lee Moe being ahead of her on the road here, it's Ramon Vos, isn't it? Being ahead of her on the road is not going to help that push. She's got the opportunity to put in another quick lap time here, but is the space going to be available on track to achieve it?
Actually, having Lee Moe in front of her towards the end of that great lap helped, I think, because it provided a slipstream, it provided that punch through the air, and she was able to just duck that Audi behind the big red Mercedes. This time, though, can she get by Ramon Vos before the chicane? Needs to, otherwise I think it's going to be more hampering her than giving her that extra mile per hour here and there.
I think she's lifted off a little. The gap is at the very most stable. Meantime, both of the Mercedes, though, going quicker. They've got time to make up, about a second and a half off the ultimate pole position time. Ramon Vos is pulling away from the Audi here, with quicker sector times being put in by the Ram Racing man. So we're waiting for either of the Mercedes to cross the line. This is going to be a bit of a battle for third position on the grid for the two Mercedes-Benz. Another drift wide there from Raymond Vos in the gunmetal grey with orange highlights. Great looking livery on that car.
And Raymond getting faster and faster the more miles he puts behind the this Mercedes under the wheels of this huge AMG, with the front nose snarling as it works its way through turns 9 and 10. But not only racing it in this championship, but others as well around Europe. So the more seat time he gets, the quicker he becomes. And Emanuele Busnelli's crossed the line to seal what is potentially going to be pole position. There's a switch, though, late on as Raymond Vos leaps ahead of Lee Mole on the timing screen. So the two Mercedes AMG switch places. Third position for Raymond Vos, leaving it late.
By 0.024 of a second. It is tiny margins between the two Mercedes. As you'd expect, identical cars, two gentlemen drivers, getting to know their new machinery this season. But 2:10.112 for Raymond Vos puts the Ram Racing car third on the GT grid. It might be mixed up, but it'd have to be pretty tight margins, wouldn't it, between them? It's a 2:10.136 from Lee Mole, who did not improve on that final lap. So Busnelli in this 46 EB Motors Lamborghini Huracan, pole position for GT, fending off a very spirited attempt at pole position from Flick Haig, a 2:08.660, so less than a tenth between those two, and less than a tenth too between the two Mercedes AMGs in third and fourth. And no news yet of what the issue was for the number 8 Lamborghini, the SVC car. Did not make it out of pit lane.
But EB Motors, and particularly Emanuele Busnelli, threatening to, well, get a similar record to Alexei Basov last year when he shared with Victor Shaitov for the SMP Racing crew. They got a number of pole positions back-to-back, and it's a third of the year after Monza and Red Bull Ring. They'll start top of the pile again here in the south of France. EB Motors, a 2:09.602 from the Optimum Racing Audi R8 of Flick Haig, who qualified it. She shares with Joe Osborne. Third fastest was the Raymond Vos-driven Ram Racing Mercedes. Tom Onslow-Cole will be doing a stint in that later on for the race. And fourth fastest was the Lee Mole and Phil Keane Mercedes. Lee, though, setting the time, 2:10.136. And as Graham says, that's just 24 thousandths of a second slower than Raymond Vos. Sadly, we didn't see the SVC Sport Management Lamborghini. Clearly problems for the Cedric Mézard DVS car. Hopefully they can be sorted out for the race, which is at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Those guys currently fourth in the championship and do not want to see valuable points disappear this weekend. So a chance to recap on the action, which is fast and furious. Just the 4 cars taking to the Paul Ricard asphalt. But we're going to get a much busier session this time for the LMP3s. Should be 14 cars out there, although there have been dramas, particularly, Graham, for the number 55 car. Yeah, the 55 car, the Spirit of Race car, had substantial contact rear end of the car with the barrier in the first free practice session yesterday. Team was still rebuilding the car yesterday. It did look as if we'd see that car emerge for this session. This has been one of the real quality efforts through the season, though. The number 3 DKR Engineering Norma, the one Norma in this field. It's 1 Norma, 13 Ligier. And it will be John Glorieux. Yeah, John Glorieux has proved a real star this year in the LMP3 element of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Still only 32 years old and sharing with Alex Tyrrell, who's a real talent as well, from single-seaters in his early 20s, but proved that he can drive a 2-seater very rapidly too. Back in action in the Michelin Le Mans Cup is the Cox Racing car, the 48. Nico Pronk will take that car to the track for qualifying. 33. BE Racing or BE Engineering prepared Ligier. Entered under the Ibrahim Pardo Javier banner. So it's going to be lots of rumbling Nissan V8s. Joel Janko there in the Duquesne Engineering Ligier. Joel, 68 years old, coming across from the United States, joined here by Kenton Koch
And, well, still no main driver, it's got to be said. Joel Janko. And we're about to get this session underway in just a few moments' time. The N-Race car, the number 99 car, and a driver change for this car this weekend. Gaetan Pilatu will join Antonio Costa. Gaetan, one of the Nissan GT Academy winners of years gone by. I think 2014, the young Frenchman won it and took part in the European Le Mans Series, the very first year of competition at LMP3, finishing second that season in a LNT entered Ginetta. The two team cars taking the top two places, so he knows his way around a GT3, an LMP3 car. And the N-Race team have been quick this weekend. 79, Nielsen Racing, one of the most successful teams in LMP3 this season, already a title-winning squad in the UK LMP3 Cup. And this will be Tony Littlejohn, I think, will be in that car for this session, joined by Colin Noble, who's been a standout talent in LMP3 racing thus far this season.
I was trying to chase round from earlier on Joel Janko's more traditional teammate. It's Scott Andrews, the Aussie, who regularly partners with Joel, but there's been a bit of a shake-up as far as that's concerned. Kenton Cook's done a lot of stuff across the water over the Atlantic, and this is, I think, his first European action.
May be able to explain that, because I was actually commentating on Scott last weekend at Sepang in Malaysia, and he missed second race in the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup with flu.
Right, that will probably answer it then. Now, we need to get some reaction from the earlier qualifying session. Let's get a word with the man who took pole position then in GT3s, joining Charlie George.
He's just collecting his helmet right now. Emanuele, if we can just grab a quick word with you, the third pole position for the EB Motors Lamborghini this season. And despite losing a lot of laps there, you still managed to do the job.
Oh, it was very, very tough today, really. The car was very difficult to drive yesterday, and actually we tried to do some changes without knowing what was going to happen, and actually the car this morning was better, and I was not expecting to go lower than 209, and actually I went down, and I mean, Flicka was so tough. I mean, they told me that it was faster, so I pushed at the last lap as much as I can, and I was very lucky I didn't make any mistakes, because in this track it's so easy to make mistakes, you know, it's very tough. It's a very difficult track for me, and so it was a great lap, really.
Thank you and well done.
Thanks very much.
So Emanuele Busnelli will potentially start the race later on today. It doesn't have to be the bronze that is installed for the first stint. That tends to be the way that most teams play it, but it might be Fabio Bobini, you never know, to start from pole position. But nevertheless, the 46 EB Motors Lamborghini due to start alongside the Optimum Racing Audi R8, and as Graham says, powered by exactly the same 5.2 V10 engine. It's going to be a fascinating fight, that, in the early stages. But we're now properly turning our attention to 14 LMP3 cars that are about to be released onto this 3.6-mile circuit. The predominant chassis is Ligier, the JSP3, but we have that one Norma M30 at the head of the order. They're all powered by the same 5-litre Nissan V8 engine, and they'll all have a bronze driver on board. But there are one or two driver combinations, including Javier Ibram and Matthijs Bakker, who are both bronze drivers, so we'll wait and see which of those is installed in the number 33 car. Likewise, Richard Mize and Andrew Bentley are a bronze combo too. So will it be Richard Mize that is given the qualifying duties? 15 minutes on the clock, still got a red light at the end, but that immediately turns to green, and the session becomes live with, well, not quite all 14 cars in the queue, doesn't look like it anyway, so some of them being held back, perhaps to try and prevent all cars pouring into the first corner. The last thing you want is traffic here on a reasonably short lap. It's fine to encounter the traffic on the straight, but there's lots of, and a big wiggle there from Jean Glorieux early on, but he rescued that pretty swiftly. Just shows again how cool these tyres are and it'll take a lap or so to get them up to temperature.
Yeah, we mentioned Andrew Bentley. That's another change in the regular order, and in fact there is Andrew's car in the rear of that shot, so we're going to see that again. Ooh, big slide, you're absolutely right, for Jean Glorieux in the 23, the Gulf Marine sponsored United Autosports car. Sean Lynn not here this weekend, so Andrew Bentley joins Richard Means. Away goes the other United Autosports car. That will be Jim Maguire in the 22 car, the Aero Paint liveried car. Jim Maguire, the owner of that company. Into the chicane they come on their establishing lap. This, I think, is going to get quite exciting. I think this is going to be a pretty close session. Interesting to see just how the Norma deals with this particular configuration of track. Out goes the number 23 car in the background of that shot there. It looks like it's going to be Richard Means aboard that car.
It is going to be interesting to see how the Norma copes with this environment, but they have 3 pole positions. It has 3 pole positions to its name so far, all set by Jean Glorieux. And will they be able to do the same job again? We'll wait and see, but the other pole position was taken by Alvaro Fontes and Andrew Cummings last time out at Red Bull Ring in Austria.
Well, that was very last-minute stuff, wasn't it? It was the SPV car, yes, and right at the very end of the session. So let's see how this develops. So all 14 cars in the class out on track, part of, well, the biggest collection of LMP race cars anywhere in the world outside the Le Mans 24 Hours, these European Le Mans Series, the Michelin Le Mans Cup race meetings. 43 cars across the 2 championships, plus, it has to be said, probably half a dozen or more spare cars for some of these teams. Nearly 50 LMP prototype racers at the circuit this weekend. And the vast majority of them on track and taking part in the racing action.
Sadly, having mentioned the Alvaro Fontes and Andrew Cummings car, they're not here, are they? No, indeed. That's why I was ferreting around looking at the paperwork. So I know we're lacking 2 of the cars that appeared at Austria, but we do have a new car, well, new from Austria anyway, but Cox Racing have already taken part in in this year's championship. It has to have been this year's championship because you couldn't run an LMP3 in last year's. So Peter Cox and Nico Pronk, welcome to them, or welcome back to them for the Cox Racing crew from the Netherlands. And it'll be 55-year-old Nico Pronk to take qualifying duties, who is the bronze-graded driver. Peter Cox still a gold. Obviously, the older he gets, the further down the rankings he will go, but still only 53.
Jean Glorieux deals with the Duquesne car of Joel Janko. Didn't lose any time, or very little time indeed, in dealing with that as he came to the end of the Mistral Straight into Scene Corner and towards the end of the lap. This will be his first flying lap and the first flying lap for anybody. It is 2 purple sectors for the Norma at the moment, and we'll keep an eye on just how that's going to compare to the rest of the competition. Already looking like the kind of crew we would expect to be seeing moving up to the European Le Mans Series next year. In part, that's what this is about. It's a training ground for new teams, new drivers. This is clearly a P3 combination of high quality, Jean Glorieux and Alex Terrell. It's a 2:04.962. That is a very quick time indeed by anybody's standards. And just comparing that to what we've seen in the free practice session so far, where of course the professional drivers can actually take a part, and that is within hundredths of the time set in free practice 2 by Peter Cox. It's a quick time from the number 3 car, and that compares, by the way, to the next quickest, which has gone to number 65 car, and it is almost over 3 seconds quicker than the 65 best time. So it does look at the moment as if the Norma is very well suited indeed to conditions here. What is now this afternoon, going quicker again, Glorieux.
Helped, of course, by Jean being an incredibly talented driver, but Adrian Schiller now slots into second fastest, driving the number 65 Graf Racing Ligier. Adrian sharing in the 65 car with Emilien Cart. red. 2 Frenchmen then, bronze and silver. There's the 99 car, which is the N-Race entry. And Gaëtan Palatou, part of the combo for this weekend. But Alain Costa is on qualifying duties. We're already into the second third of this race, if you like. 10 minutes to go, just less than 10 minutes to go, in fact.
And Costa goes second quickest and shaves second off the gap to Jean Glorieux for the moment. So Glorieux is going quicker. It's a 2:04.962 at the moment for the Norma, the DKR engineering car. And Costa in the N-Race 99 car, 2:06.918. But Glorieux is going quicker on this lap, will extend that gap unless he has dramas in the third sector.
There's the Graf car, currently third fastest, with Adrian Schiller driving it with the sponsorship on the tail fin. And it heads then into the final corner to then head back across the timing line. Let's see what the 65 car can do. Made improvements again through sectors 1 and 2, and Alain Costa on a charge as well, but Schiller goes up to second position, so jumps ahead of car 99, the N-Race entry. Also making progress, Tony Wells now slotting into 4th fastest, ahead of Eric de Donker in the 98 car, which is the entry from Motorsport 98. Eric sharing again with Andy Merrick.
It's improved time from the provisional pole sitter, though. It's a 2:03.410, 1.5 seconds to the good from Schiller in the number 65 Graf racing car. Then Alain Costa in the N-Race car, 2:06.918. So it's pretty spread out at the moment. Everybody improving up and down this order, though.
More shuffling of the order. That's Claudio Sedanovic improving in the 55 Spirit of Race car as well, the repaired machine. But it's showing pretty good speed here to be 6th fastest now, a 2:09.137 from the German. And some super slow-mo action for the Nielsen racing car. This is the car that's 4th fastest. Tony Wells on duty for qualifying, sharing with Colin Noble, and they proved to be a great duo in the team. Where are Colin and Tony in the championship? Second coming into this race, but trailing Alex Terrell and Jean Glorieux by a decent number of points.
Already UK champions.
17 points is the deficit, but yes, Nielsen having a great record in the UK in LMP3.
So improvements coming up and down the order, but no one at the moment offering any kind of dent to the superiority at the top of the timing and scoring of the number 3 Norma. Will it all come together at the end of this session, though? Jean Glorieux is on a cooling down lap at the moment. Is he going to head for pit lane, having done enough? So 2:03.4 plays 2:04.9 at the moment.
Yeah. So 1.1 seconds separating the DKR engineering Norma from the 65 Graf Racing Ligier. Who's this about to come back across the line? Number 79 car, and that's 4th fastest. It goes 3rd quickest though now, with Tony Wells at the wheel. So Tony steadily turning up the wick, and he turns left and right at the first couple of corners there. So that means that the 99 car has slipped to 4th position, with a reply needed from Alain Costa now.
And an improvement as well from the number 53 car from M Racing Weimar. Malara goes up to 5th position with a 2:07.916. So Jean Glorieux on pit lane, having done, I suspect they feel, enough to secure pole position. Adrian Schiller has closed the gap. It's 1.1 seconds from 1.5 in the 65 Graf Racing team, but still over that second. Going quicker again, though, this time around. Chipping away. 5 minutes to go.
There's a first glimpse, by the way, of Laurent Millara driving the M Racing Weimar car in its sky blue and white colours. Weimar being Ivan Muller Racing, and M Racing represented with 2 cars in the ELMS and 1 car in this category.
Yeah,
just heading through the chicane on the Mistral.
Yeah, a mixed team in the LMS, one of these Ligiers and also a Norma. An all-black number 10 car in the LMS, but still retain their Ligier for the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Way in the background there, Alexandre Coigny driving the Cool Racing by GPC Ligier, sharing with long-time driving partner Iraj Alexander and Alexandre Quani always doing the qualifying. They race a Mercedes AMG as well across Europe as part of the 24hourseries.com. But getting more and more experience and mileage for this LMP3 car of theirs. This is the 23 car, which is the United Autosports entry, Richard Mines and Andrew Bentley.
And Richard Mines is steadily improving up to 7th now, into the 208s for Richard Mines. Tony Wells, meanwhile, is closing on second position. He's got that gap down now to about half a second to Adrian Chilla's advantage. So Chilla is in second place. He didn't improve last time around. He's been closed down a little by Tony Wells. So 2:04.5 plays 2:05.0. No one looking anywhere close to the time of Jean Glorieux.
Who interestingly is back out on track and then having a spin, Jean Glorieux. So an uncharacteristic mistake there, as the tyre pressures presumably dropped whilst it was sitting on pit road. It came out again, and Jean, pushing through the first few corners, loses the back end. Thankfully here at Ricard, you're unlikely to hit anything solid unless it's a huge off. And the extra high friction tarmac on the edge of the track had mopped up that moment pretty swiftly. And Jean Glorieux continues along his merry way. He's just headed to the end of Sector 2 now.
So it's turn 5, that moment of drama happened for the Norma.
May result in some flat-spotted tyres, though.
Not good news in a series where you get limited number of tyres for the weekend. And Chilla is improving this time around. Can he get that gap to under a second? No improvement, meanwhile, in the first 2 sectors from Tony Wells. In the meantime, the number 99, the N-Race car, beginning to be a factor again and getting very close indeed to Tony Wells' time. So, snapping around here in a bit of a battle for, well, who's going to be on the first and second rows of this grid?
I don't think there's any doubt about who will start from pole, but it's the cars around that number 3 DKR Engineering Norma, which still offers a lot of interest. Half a second between this car, Adrian Schiller, and the Tony Wells car from Nielsen Racing. Alec Costa is also troubling that top 3, if you like, well, from second to 4th.
A much better time, though, for the number 65 car. Gets the gap under a second. It's just around 3/4 of a second now. There's still 2 minutes to go. Now, is it just a sweet spot for the Ligier towards the end of this session? We'll wait and see.
Maybe.
We'll keep an eye on those sector times.
The track grippier than it clearly was at the start of the session, and there's a lot of other Michelin rubber gone down, of course, with the GT3s as well. So what time are we? Just after midday here in the south of France, getting to the real heat of the day now, and the track at its grippiest. So the lap time is available to these drivers. Who's going to be brave? Jean Glorieux, as we know, back out on track. In fact, he reaches the Mistral chicane now, just ducking inside that was the 48 car from Cox Racing. Nico Pronk doing qualifying, and he's 13th so far of 14 cars. A minute to go, but if you can head over the line before the checkered flag comes out, it is possible to squeeze an extra lap out of this. Those marbles that we were talking about earlier on have really built up at Signes corner at the end of the Mistral straight, so everyone having to be careful not to run too wide into that rapid right-hander. And Jean Glorieux now working his way towards the end of the lap through the tight hairpin at turn 8, now working his way through 9, 10 and 11. Meanwhile, checkered flag appears in half a minute. So the 14 car of Ross Warburton, which is the entry from RLR Motorsport, will force an extra lap from the session. And I think Jean Glorieux will as well.
Yep, Ross Warburton still improving lap by lap. He's down in 12th position, but put in a great performance to bring a good result home for the team at the Red Bull Ring. And he and others, including just about to mention Richard Mines, and Richard goes through now, does get another lap in, but improves from 8th to 6th on that lap into the 207s. Leapfrogs a couple of cars ahead, and that's a big and significant improvement from the number 23 car, learning his trade in this Ligier through the season. Tony Wells takes the checkered flag, improves his time, but just by a few thousandths of a second
Laura Millara also home now, doesn't improve, although did manage to go a little quicker through sector 1, couldn't sustain that though. Matthijs Bakker over the line as well for the number 33 car. That's the Ibrahim Pardo Javier entered Ligier, and Bakker, who partners Javier Ibrahim, sets a time that is good enough for the moment for 7th position. Can anybody else improve though and drop that car further down the order? Alexandre Kwani over the line as well for Cool Racing, but we're waiting for Jean Glorieux, who could improve again here. He's gone purple through sector 1 and is now safely through the chicane on the Mistral through sector 2. It's purple again.
Good grief.
There's more to give.
Already has almost 0.8 of a second advantage over the field.
And Adrian Schiller must be crying into his beer here, because he can't find any speed through the first and second sectors, waiting for blue times for Adrian, but neither of them are through sectors 1 and 2. So he won't be able to close the gap, but it's down to 0.7 of a second. That's slightly more respectable. However, Jean Glorieux due across the line imminently, set to extend the gap yet further. Who else are we waiting for? Richard Mines could yet find a bit of time as well. Hasn't
improved his sector times, but it's a good steady lap from Richard Mines. It's been a good session from the 23 United Autosports man.
Jim Maguire jumping ahead of Ross Warburton late on there to gain a spot for the number 22 United Autosports car. And Glorieux goes across the line. No surprise to see another improvement on the final lap. It's a 2:03.3, gives him this cushion of 0.8 of a second back to the next best car.
I don't think he pushed very hard in that final sector either.
No.
He didn't look to me to be absolutely on the ragged edge on that final sector. That was a comprehensive demolition of the rest of the field from the number 3 DKR Racing Engineering Norma and Jean Glorieux. I have to say at the moment looking like the class of the field.
Still a young man in his early 30s, Jean Glorieux, and gaining more and more experience, but he is still only a bronze, I say only a bronze driver. He is labelled as a bronze driver, still very, very talented, clearly, as many of the bronze drivers are. It's just that they're not professional racing drivers. It's not their day job, and therefore they are guided through it. They're mentored through this motor racing lark by the gold and the silver co-drivers. Jean Glorieux's had some Porsche Carrera Cup experience in the past, I believe, and other machinery as well. But this is his first venture into prototype racing. The man from Courtrai in Belgium, just over the border from Lille in France, so very close to the French-Belgian border, and sharing with Alex Terrell, who can pedal this Norma very swiftly too.
The Luxembourg-based team, DKR Engineering, treated to the Luxembourg national anthem. This season so far in Austria and
other places too.
Well, this is doing the job that the Michelin Le Mans Cup is designed to do, is to find the talent. And Alex Terrell joining Jean Glorieux. That is one heck of a crew in this company.
We'll confirm the qualifying positions in just a moment or two, but Charlie George working very hard down in the pit lane to try and locate Jean Glorieux just as soon as he comes into the pit lane, and we'll hopefully grab a word with him before we sign off for this session. But there's plenty more action to come later on today. Remember, the race starting for these cars at 4 p.m. Central European time. It's a 2-hour race, and the bronze driver has to do at least an hour's worth of racing. And what we're going to do is, I think, is catch up with the pole sitter then for the LMP3 element of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Here now is Charlie George.
Yeah, we got the next best thing to the pole sitter in the car, and that's his teammate, Alex Terrell. Congratulations, another pole for DKR Engineering. What is it that makes this circuit another strong one for the Norma, do you think?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. One more pole. I think it's the 4th of the season, just out of 5 races. So really good, really happy for it. Yeah, again, the car is working great, as we've seen already during the season. John did an incredible job again. He's coming. So yeah, like I said, unbelievable. One more pole, and it's getting one step closer and closer every time to our championship defense.
Well done, congratulations, and good luck for the race.
Thank you very much.
Well, they come here with a 17-point lead to Alex and Jean, and, well, it's certainly set to keep that pretty stable this weekend. They get an extra point for pole position, remember, and it's Tony Wells and Colin Noble trying to chase them down, with Adrian Schiller and Emilien Cart third in the championship, and Schiller will start alongside the DKR engineering machine for that front row battle. All set up very nicely then for the 2-hour race later on today, 4 till 6 p.m, as I say, where the track will still be very, very warm indeed. And we have European Le Mans Series qualifying to come very shortly too. But so stay tuned to the various outlets for that. But a good little session there. I think it's going to thirsty work. And the first thing Jean Glorieux will do will gulp down at least a bottle of water, I think. That's going to be potentially a problem, isn't it, today, Graham? The heat in the day, and tomorrow, indeed.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's basically like running around at near 200 miles an hour in a greenhouse, isn't it, in 29-degree heat? That's the order at the end of the session. It's going to be a tale here, Johnny, isn't it? Can the hordes of Ligiers catch the plucky Norma?
Yeah.
And on the evidence of what we've seen in qualifying there, it's going to be a long 2-hour race for the rest to catch DKR Engineering, with the talents of Alex Tawil to add to the undoubted pace now of Jean Glorieux.
Yeah, Ligier with the numbers advantage, I should say, but Norma clearly with the pace most places that it goes. And as you say, how many JSP3s can potentially get in front of the Norma, and how many could potentially win the race later on today? It's a fascinating battle set as well in GT3, with the EB Motors Lamborghini Huracan taking pole position in that part of the race. Early spin as well from Raymond Vos earlier on. But congratulations to Emanuele Busnelli and Jean Glorieux. From Graham Goodwin and from Johnny Palmer, it's goodbye for now, but join us for the race later on today.